Hey, folks. Well, welcome to episode 33 of Biomassed. Appreciate everybody joining us tonight after a nice weekend, nice long weekend, and everybody's starting to get ready for the Christmas season. We had a great session last week with CCP Rattati, and we've culled a bunch of questions and topics from his conversation in the 1.10 release drop that has come out in the interim. So we've got a lot of stuff to talk about tonight. But as always, we're taking your comments on Skype and Twitter, or mailing us in game, whatever. We're monitoring it all during the show. So we've got a pretty good little handful of guests on tonight. Might have one or two join us later. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. And we're going to go ahead and do our intros. We'll start from bottom to top with Sarai Zell.
You're trying to get me off guard, aren't you? I'm
It's not
sorry,
hard.
Zell. Ouch. Okay. Member of CPM1, leader of the Top Men Alliance, and a co-host here on the show.
Pokey?
Pokey Draven from OSG Planetary Operations and also a co-host here on Biomassed.
And Jadek Menaheim.
Jadek Menaheim, CEO of Zerk Cloud Consortium and recent operator of the New Eden Pleasure Bot.
This has a lot of potential that we're going to discuss at some point in the show.
Would be a pleasure.
I can assure you. Okay, and Iron Wolf?
This is Wolf Saber of the CPM1 Secretary, and nice to meet you all.
Awesome. And Hynox?
Hi, my name is Hynox. I post things on the forums usually. Currently, I'm a partner of Jadek now. Not sure when that happened.
Did you just call him Jadek Menaheim? Oh, very well then.
I wish I did.
Okay. Well, and we're tracking your mics. His mic is coming in a little bit quiet, but we'll struggle through that one. And my name is Jason Larison. I am one of the co-hosts here on Biomassed, and I am a member of OSG Planetary Operations and Dust, and I fly with Agony Unleashed on the Eve side. Kind of hard to follow up last week when you got like the Duke of Dust on, if you will, CCP Rattati. For the record, one of the number one comments we got out of last week's show, I just want to go ahead and get this on the table. We were all very much taken surprised by this. Two things went on just behind the scenes. This is like a little bit of behind the curtain, so you guys all know. So this is basically how this goes down. About 10 minutes before the show, we're trying to pull on our normal guests. And Zell's like, guys, I think Rattati's on. And we're like, yeah, you mean next week? And he's like, no, I think he's on now. And we're like, what? So there was this brief moment where we had to, ask a couple guests to step back and bring Rattati on so we could kind of clear the floor for him. But there was this a good 30-second period where I was, channeling all of my Bill O'Reilly as I was screaming over Skype. Fine, we'll do it live. And it worked out beautifully though. So I just would like to give you guys a little sense behind the curtains how the production of the show, I say quote unquote air quotes production goes. But big shots to Rattati for coming on. But one of the other things we got out of that last week, other than some really good dope that he was dropping on us, and I don't mean the dime bag variety, although Hynox can talk to that at some point, was really like his absolute and utter lack of Icelandic Viking accent. I was really disappointed by that. I was looking for something more, more menacing, maybe a little bit growly, a lot of really thick sort of like guttural tones, but I got none of that. So that being said, if you've ever seen a picture of CCP Rattati, here's my little challenge to everybody. Number one, he's an absolutely awesome dude, and I absolute props to him for coming on the show and talking to us. That's something that you don't see very often. Developers that'll come on, or any game company that'll come on and actually physically engage with players. So that was a great thing. But if you ever look at a picture of him, which you can see on his on Twitter or on the Eve page or the CCP page, he looks just like Will Wheaton. For the record, just do yourself a favor, just compare and contrast. So I had this image in my head of it was really juxtaposed. But anyway, a lot of great information came out of that. He talked a little bit about the 1.10 update and some of his vision for the future. And by the future, we're talking about the short-term future, probably the next quarter or so, next 3 to 4 months. So some of the things that's happened that we kind of just want to set the stage for is 1.10 has dropped. All the brouhaha about bandwidth that went in, and for the record, I called it. He said, "I hope that this goes over well," and I said, "It's going to be a grease fire, but I'm sure it'll be all okay." It is, for the most part, all okay now, but I did call it was a grease fire for about the first 3 days. So we've also had the advent of the daily missions, which I think generally people tend to like. I've heard a few beefs about it that we can get into, but not only did we get the daily missions, but we got the infamous encoded strongbox, which generally people are okay with. What they're not really okay with is the hacked key that allows you to get into said encrypted strongbox. At least the general lack of keys and drops and the ORM push to get those. So those are kind of the big things that have sort of been going on. And what I would like to do is kind of open it up to the floor really, really quickly to Iron Wolf Saber and Sryzel. If you guys have anything that's specific to CPM announcements or business that you wanted to kind of put out on the audience.
Well, let's not talk about that once now. Okay. We scheduled another meeting of pretty soon, coming up with JC. Topics would be, of course, not known. But other than that, we've been trying to go through Hotfix not Hotfix, patch deployment 1.10, and working on Hotfix Echo. And lots of feedback, lots of information to be going through. And it's just lots of things to be trying to convince CCP Rattati to look at and try to see things the players' way or our ways. And just it's been rather hectic these last weeks with the holidays and everything as well.
Yeah, I'm just curious. What's the? I don't know if you guys can even get into it, but are they looking at putting out the Echo hotfix probably like mid-January if they hold to their schedule? I assume there'd be like some variance with the holidays.
Oh, they are in Shanghai, and the holidays they are required to celebrate over there are slightly different from most of the world. Their New Year's is like, for example, around was it February? Was it?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, other than the usual vacations that everyone likes to take around this time, is yeah, I do expect a little wind down in activity as well. But as far as we know, we don't know what's I exactly don't know what the exact schedule is. But the narrative for Echo is out, so feel free to discuss things on it.
Okay, all right, that'll work. Let's see. So Zell, anything from you, brother? As usual, nothing. Okay. So let's kind of move on into the discussion about the lockboxes, which we did get a couple tweets about right before the show. So Iron Wolf, Zell, if you guys can give us like a real quick rundown of sort of what the daily missions are and the lockbox drama, if you will, I would appreciate that, and we'll just kick that around to the guys for a minute.
Okay, loot crates are, well, the lockboxes are basically loot crates that many other free-to-play MMO shooters have been enjoying. Basically, you play the game and you get these boxes every so often. And Dust 504, you get them through daily missions, salvage, and you can possibly buy them as well. Now, to unlock these boxes usually requires a key. Most free-to-play games often offer these keys at a pay price, with no alternative way to get them. At least in Dust 504, there's a chance that the key will drop from salvage, but it's fairly low. And there's also a chance that you can get them through daily missions. Some of the missions are offered as a reward itself, and some requires the completion of all daily missions. The daily missions is a activity tracking system that allows players to get reward for playing the game proper.
Okay. So now the way this is starting to funnel in is that getting the boxes themselves are pretty easy, right? You can get 20 or 30 a day if you're really getting after it, and maybe if the kind of daily missions roll in your favor. But I think the issue is really the encrypted keys to open the boxes, right? That's sort of the rarity of those items.
Yes, we have CPM has expressed the community concern about the boxes heavily outnumbering the keys, so we're looking into possible solutions to it.
I said this I think to you before the show is I think personally for me I think payout salvage all of it, that the reward for the game really needs a overall look at, because there's things that don't drop nearly enough. There's other things that probably drop too much. Payout tends to be low in game modes that it definitely deserves to be higher in. Stuff like that. I think that salvage as a whole needs to be looked at more heavily.
Okay, I mean that's pretty fair. Now, have you guys actually tried to open some of these boxes yet?
I haven't
Yeah.
gotten any keys to open them.
Had mixed
here.
success with them.
How many have you opened up, Jadek?
Let's see. I think about 10. But
Did
yeah,
you pay for any?
I bought. I wanted to try out that pack of 10 you could get for the bundle.
Oh, okay.
So
All right.
yeah, it was a mix of advanced gear and a couple prototype things too. They had Pyrus gear mixed in there as well, which is interesting.
I would say generally, if anything coming out of one of those boxes should be at a minimum prototype gear. I don't think there's. That was the other thing I've noticed, that I think a couple of people got like 20 standard forge gun, like stuff that you generally certainly would never pay Aurum for.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of the other beefs, is that it was a little bit hit or miss. I mean, there was some decent stuff in there, but you also had a shot at getting some really, really like Walmart level jazz too. So I think that was kind of the beef.
Then on the other end of things is there was someone had pulled Balak's assault suits, which were supposed to never ever
Kane
be
did
available.
not like that.
Yeah, Kane pitched a fit because they were never ever supposed to be available in game again, and apparently they can be pulled out of those boxes too. So I think it's a bit of like buying a lottery ticket.
Yeah. Some people got Omega boosters as well out of them.
Really? Oh, that's pretty high energy. I can deal with that.
It was like only 1 to 3 days, but nonetheless, it's still a mega booster.
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
not bad at all. Well, I mean, particularly because you can stack these things now. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think my main concern is that because the boxes are dropping so much more frequently than the keys, that it becomes a point where you have so many boxes that you know you can't open that you don't really care about getting more, and it kind of removes the incentive to actually do missions to get those boxes.
So, Pokey, what do you think if we could switch that around? Like, the drop rate of the keys would be much more than the boxes themselves.
It's kind of the same deal then. I mean, you've got a bunch of keys you can't use because you don't have the box to open them. I mean, it's kind of the same deal.
I mean, it seems like you could get to a point where you could like break those keys down for something else.
Yeah, I think if there's a good exchange program, like trade-in boxes for keys or whatever, obviously a large ratio. I mean, some reason that the boxes are useful beyond sitting in your inventory until you eventually get a key for it. But I mean, at the rate that's going right now, I've gotten, I think, 1 key, and I have like 50 boxes, and I haven't really been playing that much. And I'm like, oh, I got a box, but I don't care because I can't open it anyways, you know?
Yeah, I think it was Arcana or Inspire was commenting on the forums that had enough to, like, you'd have to pay, it's like 150,000 Aurum to unlock the boxes.
Well,
yeah, and I think it's fine that if CCP wants to sell keys, I mean, that's fine. It's certainly an interesting way to make money, but when the ratio is so steep in one direction, it's kind of frustrating that it's like, well, okay, how badly do you want me to buy these keys, rather than, you know.
Yeah, I think the drop rate on the boxes is too high from what I'm hearing, and
yeah.
I like the idea of, say, like turning in 10 or 20 boxes or whatever for a key, that sort of thing. You're trading in, the potential chances for one you can actually, use.
Sure, I'll buy that, but again, you have to make the contents of the box like pretty legit, though.
Yeah, that's what I was suggesting, swapping the keys for.
What's the price on the keys again?
800 Aurum, or it's less if you buy it in a bundle.
It's what, 40 cents, I think.
Yeah, because I mean that does sound a bit high for such a grab bag of a lottery, but I don't know. I mean, you have the potential to get quite rare stuff from it too. So it's a balancing act, and I think the big thing is that was getting the system in the game, and it can be hotfixed and tweaked and adjusted as necessary now.
Right. Yeah.
Jack does bring up a good point, though, that if you swap the drop rates, then buying a key is a bit more important than just having. Because I mean, at that point, if you've got the box and you don't have the key, then you can buy the key. But I mean, if you've got so many boxes, it comes a point where it's like there's no way in hell I'm going to possibly buy these keys to open it. So I could see some merit in exploring that.
Hynox, did you have something?
I was actually made. Perhaps you could have like different tiers of chests, like you'll have a small chest, medium chest, a large chest. Corresponding to small chests.
Yeah, a different value chest could be a good thing too. I mean, I always keep thinking about time if we could get player trading and then trade these chests.
Yeah, and maybe like the rare chests would have like a confirmed prototype.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
Like a minimum payout that you're guaranteed this or higher.
Rare, so they would have some value associated with them.
Hey, Pogi, can you paraphrase Hynox a little bit? We're having a couple of guys having a hard time hearing him in the channel.
Yeah, if I heard him correctly, forgive me if I didn't. Basically, saying that there's different either sizes or grades of boxes that you can get, and then you can get basically use the key in the box and guarantee this amount of something or this tier of something or above. So at least when you use a key in a box, you're going to get at least a minimum of something out of it, opposed to a crapshoot of it might be standard, it might be proto. That's what I heard him say, but it's really hard to hear him.
I remember playing a bunch of Mass Effect 3, the multiplayer there, and that's the system that they used. Basically, you can invest in the type of crate you wanted. You had your mercenary, your veteran, and then like your elite box, and then your whatever the Spectre box, something like that, and you get like a confirmed percentage on like the rare loot that you wanted.
That's basically what I was trying to talk about. I have a lot of so I might just move over to chat.
Yeah, so one of the things I was kind of noticing is generally, now this might be an interesting comment for both Iron Wolf and Zelda, kind of give some insight on, but a couple of the beefs in general about the daily missions, and definitely was in the minority, but what they said kind of made a little bit of sense was that that the log boxes might be taking the place of salvage items after match that you would normally be able to use. So like you are foregoing your chance of getting useful salvage by getting a lockbox that you can't open as part of the salvage package that you get at the end of a match. Does that kind of make sense?
Yes. CPM has recognized that the salvage system is not ideal. It's not perfect. There's lots of flaws in it. One things we would like to see happen more often in all game modes. Things you help kill wind up on the loot table.
And ideally, in my personal preference, I would like to have a chance at salvaging stuff from the people I kill. So when I put in a ton of effort to go kill someone with an officer weapon, then I have a decent chance of being the one to get that officer weapon. That'd be really
fair
cool.
enough. I think another issue people were having with the mission rewards was some of the rewards required you to get a certain amount of like SP at the end of match. And the only way to get some of those higher tier ones, it felt like for people, was to pay the Aurum booster at end of match.
Yeah, I saw a couple of those that seemed a bit off to me.
Well, they also have some where they want you to activate 5 of the instant boosts, which cost Aurum in order to get SP, which I thought was interesting.
I didn't get a list of all the missions beforehand, so I didn't have the chance to be looking at these things.
I mean, if you think about it, like in order to complete one of the missions, you must buy Aurum. That's literally what it said.
Or you can re-roll for Aurum.
Yeah. Now, bear in mind, I don't think that any of this is like evil or nefarious.
No, it's
but it is
helping us get content.
Yeah, it's an absolute clear change in sort of how the flow of the game works. And an interesting point that I think Pyrex even made in one of the videos he released either today or yesterday was that CCP, if you look back, particularly those of us that have been playing for a long time, they have been really, 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 really good about not pushing any of this on us, maybe to the point where it hurt them about trying to show how profitable Dust could be. And basically what they're doing is what any good business would do, is they're trying to maintain, black in the ledger books, I think. And they're doing it pretty well. And after I've played other free-to-play games, and this isn't nearly, there's no true paywalls in Dust. It is a bit obnoxious, admittedly, but there are absolutely no paywalls in Dust, and there are in a lot of other games. And so make no mistake, it's definitely a freemium game, if you will. But I think that's one of the things a lot of people are still adjusting to, is going from a true free-to-pay with, frankly, not much incentive to buy ROM items like real money items outside of maybe boosters. And even then, you could certainly get by without those to what you've got now, where incrementally, like little by little, certain things are requiring you to pick up ARM. And I think that's one of those where I really hope that they monitor walking a fine line with the community and not go overboard, because the first time you get the moniker of truly being pay to win, it's usually a bad sign.
I think this is also a good example of why player trading is really imperative, because if you have the ability to trade ORM or ORM items via for ISK or whatnot, then that really kind of dismantles that pay-to-win mentality that people tend to get. I mean, like you said, there's no paywalls, but it does get a little obnoxious after a while. And if you can have a system in place where you can get someone else to pay your ORM for you, then that's a lot more enjoyable to the player, because some people just don't want to spend money in the game, and that's fine. But I mean, the game obviously has to make money one way or another because it is free to play. So I'm glad to see that at least basic trading is on the roadmap for development. So I think it's really important in terms of the game's economy and how people perceive it.
Well, there could be.
Go ahead.
There could be another way we could go about this too. The mission could be made in such a way to raise player awareness that the feature exists. So instead of making the player cost the player, you could offer ARM rewards equal to the cost to do it.
That's not bad. I mean, that's definitely another option. Hey, real quick, guys, before we keep going on, I wanted to. We've got one guest that joined us real quick. Lethargic, are you up?
Hey, everyone.
Hey, what's up, brother? Can you give a quick intro?
Hello, my name is Lethargic. I am in Bloodline Rebellion. I just got home off work, and I'm eating. Sorry, mouthful. I am career heavy, and I am. I love Dust. Enough said.
Okay, all right. I can totally buy that.
I eat well in voice chats too, so.
Well, true. Yes, you do.
Logic
okay.
Bros muted me before.
Oh, goodness gracious! All right, so we did. I think we just beat up the lock boxes and the hacked keys pretty well. Other major piece that was coming out of 1.10 was the bandwidth issue with the logis. A couple of things that we noticed right off the bat. There was two sets of bugs that actually came out with that. I think the first set of bugs was, if I'm not mistaken, bandwidth was set to like
8.
7 or 8
for everyone.
for everybody, which the first time I played a match with the new bandwidth change, it was like I didn't realize there was a bug, and I was just absolutely incredibly frustrated the entire match.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, you had the bandwidth limit in general, but you were getting your benefit from being logistics.
Sure, and it was really confusing because I was at first I thought it was the amount of like the 300 war point flux strikes that were going in that was killing all the equipment all the time. Because I, for the record, I think I called it. It was like blueberry lightning. It was like shit was falling out of the sky like every 30 seconds. I got really tired of hearing the war barge strike warning siren. So that's what I thought it was at first, and then after about 3 matches, I was like, "There's a problem." So then I pulled off to the side of the red line and started putting equipment down and counting it. I put 1 nano hive down. Okay, that worked. I put the second nano hive down. Looked over, and the other one was gone. I was like, "Uh-oh, we have a problem." Let's see. They did fix that, and then they came up with a second round of bugs, if I'm not mistaken. Gosh, I can't remember what it was. But I know there was another small bit of drama they had to fix like the next day. And if I remember correctly, a lot of people's scanning ranges got changed very dramatically. It like went up to like 3,000, like 3.
That was a display bug.
Okay, so that wasn't for real in the game. That was actually just on the suit stats.
From my understanding, it was adding 2 zeros to the numbers.
Oh, okay. I thought it had something to do with like how Unreal does measurements.
Oh, I can totally see that. Yeah.
That may be related too, because Unreal, when you're looking at it, it's not in meters; it's in centimeters. Was it?
Okay.
That's kind of I guess you're having to go to a granular denominator to try to figure that out. Okay, that's just like huge numbers though.
Yeah, when you want 400 meter range, it looks like 40,000 in the SD, and it's like, whoa.
That long stare.
Yep. And we've got one more guest for the night. Gand, you mind giving a quick intro?
I think he's messing with his audio right now.
Okay. Well, whenever you come up, man, just give us a holler. So we actually got a pretty good crew on tonight. Let's see. Any other major changes coming out of 1.10?
The team, the Warbard strikes. There was a bug with that too, about when you would accrue enough war points to get a strike. Anyone who was in a squad could take from your squad's war points.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think they saw. I think they got that fixed pretty quick though.
I think Dagon's got his audio working, so if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, what's up?
Okay. And who you running with on Dust, man? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, my name's Gand. I don't really run with anyone really. I've just been running solo most of the time since, FanFest and everything. And yeah, I'm just with an NPC corp really, so yeah, just run solo.
Okay. All right. We're all about antisocial people here. Just ask Zell. I'm sure the two of you guys can go into separate solo squads and try to queue sync, and that way you can still stay separate but feel like you're together in your separateness.
Just think about each other all the time.
Yeah, no, we appreciate you hopping on. Degan was going to get on last week, but we, like I said, he was one of the casualties when we kind of cleared the guest roster when Rattati came on. So we do appreciate you coming back on this weekend, man.
Yeah, no problem.
Awesome. Okay, so we've just been kicking around the 1.10 drop, and one of the things I did kind of want to move on to was looks like Rattati's already dropping some hints about things he wants to look at for Echo. Kind of another round of rifle rebalances, among other things. And there's, I think, a lot of people looking to see what directions he's going to take, like pulling off of the Trello roadmap and or the community suggestions. So a couple things I wanted to kind of open up to the group. Just some thoughts about some of the different things that they've put out for potential hotfix Echo changes. And then maybe talk a little bit about the Trello boards and how we think that's shaping up both the roadmap itself, what are your thoughts on the items on the roadmap, and then the little community pasteboard side of it where we're offering recommendations and suggestions. So let's open it up to the Echo pitches first. Anybody got something that's their favorite they want to put on the table first?
I'm going to go look at them, actually.
Okay, well, I'll throw one up. Looks like he's talking about toning down the breach AR and buffing the assault scrambler and the burst AR.
The burst AR was kind of cool. He's basically increasing the burst from 4 to 5 shots, so it's going to perform a little bit more like it used to, which I was a big fan of back in the day. So I'm excited for that. I'm
excited for the anti-vehicle remote explosives.
Yep.
I'm not.
Wow. Well, I'll take that in a quick two-parter. For the burst, I would like to give a shout out quickly to Aeon Amadi, who did some pretty good math on the forums about. There's a question about why the burst was kind of underperforming, and he did some pretty solid math on how DPS is calculated. I would also like to point out the same calculations he was using. You could probably apply to a lot of weapons with kind of funky mechanics or weird things to get a more true depiction of DPS, which I think we've needed for a long time. So, and I think Rattati even gave him some props for the math. It said it helped him out a lot, or at least it's helped him kind of get his pathway together on how he wants to work on the burst AR. But the bottom line was he was looking to actually buff it a little bit, like in terms of the raw damage. Because he kind of showed that the actual DPS did not reflect the on-paper DPS. And one of the other components a couple of things that I had mentioned, and he and I had batted back and forth on, was perhaps giving it a little bit more ammunition in the magazine to go with it. So I think that was their plan for the burst. Now for the assault scrambler, I got no idea. I'm not sure what to do to make that thing better. They would have to rework 2 or 3 different components of it. First and foremost, probably being its muzzle flash and its like recoil, I guess, for lack of a better term. Let's see. Does that sound about right, guys?
It's also nice that they're adding in the racial frames and tiers to the loyalty store. That's a nice thing to just kind of get set up. I mean, not confirmed, but it'd be nice.
Yeah, I mean, he's got very clearly stated that these are the things that they want to do, but not all of them will be able to make it through, depending on time and prioritization and stuff. One of the ones that I'm
narrative.
Yeah.
One of the ones I'm
Valid
hoping makes it actually is that there is an item about vehicle types, the vehicle variants. And that would be really cool because I need more things to nerf.
No.
At the same time, I mean, he's specifically talking about the logistics LAV, and I really want to make sure they take their time to get that right. Because, I mean, previous iterations of the Logi LAV have not been good in their performance or how they operate. When it turned from a support vehicle into a run everyone over ever vehicle because I can't kill me, that wasn't good. So hopefully we can get a proper development for that instead of pushing it through just for the sake of getting it. So I wouldn't be bent out of shape if that didn't make it into Echo, because I do want them to take their time and make sure it works the way it needs to.
Murder taxis were so much fun, though. They were so broken.
I did it too.
They were so broken, but so much fun.
They were the bane of my existence, but when they were gone, I kind of missed them.
You love to hate them.
I know. They were like my arch nemesis as a forge gunner.
I knew one guy that made an alt for just using LAVs during that time.
That's probably pretty good.
I found it sad back then. It was easier to kill the pilot than it was the vehicle.
Oh yeah, and for the record, I would take a mild bit of issue with what you said a minute ago, Soraya. Is I know even in jest, the CPM doesn't nerf anything, nor should you. What you should do is offer.
We heavily
feedback.
Advocate the nerf,
and that's the problem. That's not your place nor your position to do that. So I would be remiss if I did not call you out on that. And I know that you were joking a bit on it, but that's still something that I honestly believe that the CPM probably needs to start taking a little bit more seriously based on sort of the dialogue that's been going on, with several of the CPM members and some of the members of the community. But anyway, let's see. I do like the idea of bringing back the. Are they talking about Logi dropships too? Were they talking about all of it or just the labs?
Just the labs that I can see.
And the Marauder.
Oh, that's right. They are. They're you guys are you're looking for feedback on that, right?
Mm-hmm.
The $1 million tanks.
Yeah, absolutely.
There was one idea that I saw that Rattati liked, and I actually like a lot too. I don't know if it's going to be an Echo, but it was an idea that caught my attention. Was creating a new module for low slots that increased the rate of fire, so that you could have a DPS glass cannon where you chew through more ammo, but your DPS is higher through rate of fire. So if you wanted, you could take like an assault suit and put high slots and low slots with damage mods and rate of fire mods. I thought that was pretty cool.
That sounds interesting. My only problem with that being that I tend to run 6-kin HMG.
I was just thinking of that.
That would make me unstoppable.
Cal Heavies would love that.
The sound of it.
Yeah, I think that's one of those you'd have to break into like a light and heavy category. Like just basically like you do damage mods, you'd have to mimic that. Where, I mean, the only way to make that accurate is you just don't make a heavy rate of fire mod, if that makes sense. Like you only had it for. Yeah, and I think that would be pretty legit. Now, I think it would be interesting to see what would happen if you stack like 2 or 3 complex light damage mods and a couple of the rate of fire mods, or vice versa. If you really min-maxed it, that it would be I think pretty scary. I suspect.
Combat rifle. Enough said.
Well, the assault combat rifle, you'd probably be out of ammo in like 0.3 seconds, but you lay waste to anything in front of you.
Ion pistol probably broken with our model.
Hynox, can you say it again, bro? I'm losing Hynox. Was anybody able to hear him?
No.
Nope.
Okay. All right.
Testing.
Yep, we got you guys.
Oh, I hear him.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I was just going to say that it'd be interesting to see that.
Okay, scratch it. I can barely hear him.
Sounds very far away.
It's a fire like the rail rifle. You might get situations, you get a lot of OP weapons and they're not sure how to balance it because they have to, in the process, balance out like several variations of the weapon with different modules on.
Oh, I see.
Okay. All right. So I think what Hynox is getting at is that if you look at some of the different rifles, and you start shoring up weaknesses on them. So I think he was using an example of the rail rifle. If you increase its rate of fire pretty significantly, and you give it a damage buff, that's a weapon that's really, really hard to balance anyway, even without modifications based on suit mods, that kind of thing. So when you start getting into that territory, it's going to be really, really hard to deal with, I think, from a balance perspective. I think that's about what he was getting at.
Yeah, because
he just concurred. So I have to agree with him. I like the idea, because what it also does is it sets up where shield tankers can use their low slots for weapon modifications, whereas the armor tankers have always been able to stack up some pretty good damage mods in their high slots and then and it doesn't really touch their tank. So from that kind of aspect, I like the idea of giving me an alternative, but it's one of those where I could see where if you tried to actually make a legit glass cannon using both types of mods, it might really quickly get out of hand.
Here's a thought. What if you put like some sort of exception rule, like you can only equip one type because otherwise your CPU can't handle it?
I could kind of see that.
Because then it's not that big of a balancing issue. It becomes more of a preference.
Fitting is just one of those things that's really already hard enough on our new players without a proper MPE to help out. Do we really need to add more to it to make it just because?
Being an EVE veteran, I say the more modules we have, the better.
Yep.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. Now, I will say this though. I do recognize my own bias in that, because much like Lethargic said, I'm coming at it from an EVE perspective where I'm all about having like hundreds of different kinds of modules that I can play with. So I can see both sides of that argument.
Well, I'm just saying, I'm for hundreds of modules too. I just don't want weird rules exceptions to be popping up all over the place.
Oh,
this one module does that. This one module does that.
Gets too complicated.
Yeah.
And we got plenty of players that don't read English too, so that's the other thing.
Okay. One of the things that I had thought about a long time ago was if they could. It's probably not doable. Certainly not in the short term. But I've always thought that you should have a separate set of equipment slots just for your weapon. So you can or perhaps you use weapon modification modules in place of equipment. Like you can carry a drop link, or you can bring a rate of fire increase, a zoom increase, or a raw damage increase, or an ammo reservoir, or something like that on your drop suit. I always thought if they treated those things more like equipment rather than suit modules, it would probably help out a little bit more with the balance, and it makes you make some real choices then.
I thought that's a good idea too. I thought about that in the past, and I was thinking, that could be actually something more of like a prototype of a prototype, if that makes sense. Like something similar to EVE strategic cruisers, where we modify the subsystems to where you can get like a special suit or a special weapon that has subslots that you can modify to your liking.
Yeah, no, I think that would be pretty awesome. I just think that's probably well beyond the capabilities of what they've got to work with right now in Dust, where we currently stand.
I mean, one direction you can approach with additional sort of damage modification or just modification in general is that you can have a downside associated with the modules. So if you try to, double stack them, or you're doing a true glass cannon, it'll actually hinder you more than it'll benefit you, because if it's increased fire rate, it could be, I don't know, some other downside where you don't want
Increased
to really
heat or something. Yeah.
something like that. Yeah, where you don't want to basically stack too many of these things together because those downsides build up. And so it's more of I'm trading off one thing to get something else, and it makes balancing a little bit more easy rather than just straight buffs, because that can get out of hand very, very quickly.
Yeah, I think that would be pretty legit. I mean, there's a lot of ways you can tweak it. It just depends on how many dials they want to build into the system.
There was another. If we're ready to move on to the next topic, there was another idea that Rattati has been thinking about every other minute. He says was. Jotun Izalaru writes, not too late to just reduce strafe speeds by 15% or whatever across the board. It worked well for Dust before, and Rattati says that definitely crosses his mind every other minute. What do you guys think about that?
Overall, he's trying to fix sort of the game's technical limits. For example, when you run really fast, hit detection goes to shit.
Okay, well, should that be all suits getting a nerf, or just some suits getting a nerf?
I think it should scale with the size of suit that you are, because heavies have it hard enough as far as the strafe war goes, and if you nerf them, that's just, sure, their speed isn't that high, and the percentage is not, going to hit them that hard, but it's still 15%, whereas a scout, that's going to hit them a lot harder. I think it should be like 15, 10, and 5 for scout, assault, and heavy. That's just my thought.
I could kind of see that. I mean, I think the thing what I don't know is like, where is the threshold for the like hit detection going bad? Like what is the speed that makes hit detection go bad? Like that's what I don't know, because if that's an actual known, if that's like a hard line that they could draw and say, if you have a suit that moves faster than X through a use of Kincats and whatever, or for whatever the environmental condition is making him move that fast, then it's basically impossible to target them or hit them. Then that's where I would just put a ceiling, like leave everything roughly where they are, but put a hard cap on how fast something can possibly move.
The thing is, we already have one of those in the game already because the animation cycles can't go that fast. It's just there's a lot of nuances in Dust's engine that does not make friendly with higher performance things. Unfortunately, I believe this hit detection thing is probably based on your connection to the servers rather more than the game itself.
Well, it's really hard to deal with, and I mean that's like this goes back to something that Foxgate and I have fenced on this a couple times. Like, I do not experience lag anywhere like I have heard other people experiencing, like game breaking lag every third or fourth match that's like a slideshow. I don't ever get that, like ever. Like the worst I've ever gotten was like in a PC match, or and well, when I say ever, I mean like literally, it's like once in a blue moon, like absolutely, it had to be like Galente Research Facility in the complex, and it would have to be like worst possible conditions, but rarely do I get, lag that really affects gameplay.
Jason, can I ask what PlayStation you have? Model type?
I have no idea. I think it's kind of the fat round one. I don't know. You're asking the wrong dude.
Okay.
It's probably about 2 or 3 years old. About 3 years old, yeah.
I don't know. Sometimes that might have a thing to do with it. I mean, I upgraded my hard drive, and I'm doing fine with performance wise.
Yeah. So that's what I mean. Those are the things where it's really hard to figure out when it's something that's somewhat individual by player or region versus something that's hard coded in the game. That's why I was asking, but. If the answer is to slow people down or slow things down, then I think it needs to be done very, very smartly. I can see the arguments back and forth. You're going to have guys that like to speed tank that will immediately say, but you're taking away what makes me be able to play, or at least in their mind it does. So I can kind of see where the concerns are for that. And then they're immediately going to call for a like an even-handed nerf across everybody so that their playing field is still relatively level. But the effects on people may not all be the same. I think that's the big thing I'm trying to formulate my head as I think through this.
And people wonder about aim assist systems too. And it's like that's sometimes it works really well, sometimes it doesn't work at all.
Yeah, no, I can kind of buy that. I'm taking a quick look through some of the Echo pieces. One of the things Pokey brought up, and I absolutely steamrolled over him here earlier, and I apologize for that, was the packed remote explosives, like the anti-vehicle remotes. That's actually something I've been calling for a very long time, which is basically, everybody that says I got to carry a bunch of remotes and no, I don't really frisbee them. I'm like, great, then make one with like a 0.1 meter blast radius that's only for vehicles, and it does hellacious damage against vehicles, but it's worthless to frisbee at somebody. So I'm a huge fan of the packed remote explosive, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, jokes aside, it's being killed by remotes in a tank is the equivalent of being knifed by somebody in the drop suit. I mean, it's not easy to do, and when people do it, I'm usually pretty impressed. And I think that having a specialty remote specifically for that is perfectly fine. I think that's pretty cool that they can. And like you said, it's got that small radius, so I mean that it won't be used for my much hated remote frisbees, but actually used for anti-vehicle, which is pretty cool. So I hadn't thought of that, but it's actually a really good idea. So I'm looking forward to that as well.
Tangential question here. I haven't been on the past few days, but did they change anything regarding the inertia drops automatically deploying?
I believe that is a bug, and they're going to try to fix it.
Okay.
Oh, I thought that was a quote unquote feature.
Oh, it's nerfing my style. I like to do halo drops, especially onto tanks.
Yeah, the first time that happened, it scared me. And then I was like, what the hell is going on? Then part two, I was like, I've just determined I can't drop down from the pipes I can't drop from vertical spots on the map and be ready to fight. I will drop down and go to my kneeling prayer pose after a drop inertia activates, and then I get mowed down by some dude who's watching me.
I think it is a pretty cool thing, though, that they added that, because it is kind of sometimes a point of confusion for new players. So I think it's cool they added just let me turn it off if I want to, and that would be
cool. No, it's not cool. It's not cool at all. Like this, okay. Here's the thing. Like when you jump out of the war barge, what do you see center mass of the screen at 6 o'clock? What is the message?
But they're newbies and they get scared easily, and text can be hard to read sometimes.
Okay,
police. So what button do I press?
I'm going to acknowledge that we're about 30,000 years in the future in our game here in New Eden. I would hope that the literacy rates have at least stabilized. And I would also like to point out that maybe, just maybe, natural selection works. Because if you didn't hit your inertial dampeners, chances are you're probably not going to be doing me a lot of good in the match either.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
I really haven't heard a player complaining about falling to their deaths at BMCC because they didn't know what to do.
Correctamundo.
It's more like, I put a whole clip into a guy and he didn't die.
Yeah, I mean, most of the drop inertial stuff I've seen is usually somebody trying to be really slick, calling in their drop ship on the way down, and then like fumbling the button, and then they splatter. But even then, if most well tank suits can actually survive the drop.
Wasn't there an announcement pre 1.10 regarding like inertia canceling? Something like regarding like the different colors of the inertial dampeners.
Yes.
Yeah. Somebody said that too. But I never looking up in the sky watching people fall, so I have no idea what it looks like.
The off suits all feature a purplish pink tone.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's like a solid style now. It's awesome.
I love it.
Give them pink hood next. I would love some pink hood. Just saying.
You get a Nyan Cat version.
Yeah, there you go. So that would be actually pretty legit, I think. So I did, like, something's on the tip of my tongue here. One of the things I wanted to kind of ask the group with the Apex suits, is that sort of not the way that is that not like the entry point for like a pseudo terracide that we can work through over time? Just wanted to throw that out there. Total sea change in the conversation, I know, but
I don't think there was ever any intentional attempt to make Apex suits be terracide. I think that's a tinfoil theory.
that's not what I asked. What I asked was if you treated those suits like basically all high, lows, and modules, all the slot layouts are the same, but really what changes is color in the CPU and PG. Is that not like a kind of a poor man's version of terracide?
I would say so, yes.
And by poor man, I also mean pretty inefficient too, by the way. Pokey, please regale us of your thoughts on terracide and the Apex drop suit. See how well I did that?
Oh, okay.
I just in case you guys didn't hear that little bing in the background, that was show production going to level 3.
Yeah. No, I it's Zell's right. It's a tinfoil theory. I don't think that Dust can, or at least they're willing to shift to a true terracide system because they sell suits that allow you to access higher tiers. Well, I mean, I guess they could do that, but the point of the matter is that the Apex suits do perform as I would expect a standard terracide suit to perform, where it's got the proto level slots, but if you just assume that you only have enough CPU and PG to actually fit standard gear, that's basically what you've got with those Apex suits. So, like Jason was saying, you could then increase the CPU to allow you to fit advanced stuff and then fit proto stuff for the proto one. And I mean, I love it. I wish it was more like that because lack of slots means lack of flexibility and fitting, and it makes it very boring. I would love to actually be able to do stuff, but a lot of my suits, like the Commando, I've got 2 slots at standard, so I can't really do much besides the bare essentials. I can't do anything interesting with it. So I think that if you were to go to a terracide system, kind of using the Apex suit as a groundwork would definitely be how I personally would design it, because I think it's pretty solid.
No, for the record, I don't think they would be able to. I think they would still sell suits because effectively, if you wanted to use your arm to get an advanced suit, you're not buying the modules and the equipment slots at that point. What you're buying is the CPU and PG to fit better. So you could still. I don't think that would change their suit purchase too much. That part of their business model, would it?
That's true. I think the main overarching effect would be that lower level suits would effectively become stronger and proto suits would remain the same, which disincentivizes the purchase of proto because that gap is smaller at that point. Not that I think that's a bad thing, but that's how people would see it, and they may not want to buy higher level Orem stuff or go that direction because they feel like it's not as much of an advantage for their money as they would like. So I could see this potentially being a problem, but you are right. They could still sell the suits because you would be buying the PG, not just the slots.
But the people who want the extra edge can get that if they'd like.
Sure. Yeah. It's all a matter of price point. Like, is the money I'm spending worth the advantage I'm gaining by getting this? And that's really what it comes down to. It's just the numbers and cost and whatnot, and how people will perceive the value of what they're purchasing.
Okay. So, any other random thoughts as we look into the future before we move on to the discussion about the Trello board?
I will jump back to the strong boxes, and on the roadmap that we've seen, there's mention of a salvager role, and I'm curious if by salvager role that has anything to do at all with the strong boxes and potentially giving us additional ways to open the boxes aside from the keys. And this is probably, of course, all the NDA, but if anyone wants a tinfoil on it, I think that could be interesting.
I think Iron Wolf and Zell would love to.
As much as I like tinfoil, I'm going to have to decline. I'm going to have to go with my copper foil today.
And Zell spacing out, so yeah, I mean,
it's kind of true, but no, I can't talk about future stuff.
Yeah,
I think it is more interesting if the community talks about it to give us new ideas than we state what the CCP thinks it should be this far out.
That's fair.
Yeah, I remember talking with this idea with Kane a long time ago, the salvager idea, like something like a position within the corp that you could set up that people feed your salvage to, and then you can distribute it through the corp or set up contracts and what have you. But I don't know. You could definitely open up some griefing play with that.
Yeah, I forget who said it on the forums. It was actually kind of a cool idea that you could either open your box legitimately with a key, or you could force it open with a chance to destroy whatever's inside with a pretty poor success rate, which can then be modified by skills to raise your chance of not breaking what's inside. And I think that kind of line is actually pretty cool, because I mean, if the drop rate for boxes is what it is, but the intention is to give us more ways to open it, potentially in a way that's such that you want a lot of boxes because you're going to be breaking into a lot of them and potentially failing a lot, that's a lot more reasonable. But I mean,
if you do that though, what you really have to do is you have to have it so that the game tells you what you wrecked, so that once you can get your crate of advanced forge guns, and then you when the next one cracks and breaks and you find out that it was actually like officer drop suits.
And then over there in Shanghai, they're just like twiddling their fingers going, excellent, excellent.
CCP trolling at its finest. But yeah, I think that if the intention is to add more means to open the boxes, I think that the current drop rate may be more appropriate. But I mean, currently it's obviously has its issues, as we've discussed.
Okay. Let's see. All right. I think let's kind of move on to the Trello discussion. And I think by now a lot of people have seen it. It's the there's two components. One, there's the actual roadmap itself, and then there's the community board, which Rattati set up, which is very much a very flat sort of free flow way of organizing community ideas, and they can kind of get upvotes and things like that. It's much more organized than the forums in terms of a way to like screen or funnel feedback to the dev team and to the CPM, I guess, to a degree. So I'm just kind of curious what your guys' general thoughts are on both those products that are out there.
Well, I had never even heard of Trello until they opened it up, but honestly, it's a pretty neat tool, and I have to say I've been pretty impressed with the community and not turning into a total shitstorm on the one they can edit, the crowdsourcing one. I mean, I think that I don't know if the devs actually wanted people commenting on each other's ideas because it's not supposed to be a forum, but aside from that, I think overall it's been fairly successful. Some really cool ideas. I've enjoyed checking up on that on a daily basis. So I think it's a good idea, and I'm glad that CCP went ahead and actually took a more open approach to collecting information in this way.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be better if people were linking to discussion threads of their ideas rather than commenting on the Trello or something like that. But yeah, I mean, the Trello's what CPM use. We'll have our conversations, and a lot of times the conversation ends with, put it on the Trello, please, because it is a very easy way for to not lose track of ideas and to keep them organized and accessible.
I think that's probably a pretty good idea, and I would kind of echo what Pokey said. The generally the comments are, well, I think uniformly the comments are, well, there's not a lot of comments. Basically, people post their ideas and they get upvotes, or people signing onto the card, that kind of thing. This is probably very difficult for people to visualize if you haven't seen the Trello, but it's not like a discussion forum in any way, shape, or form. It's literally just you see an idea, often with a link to a forum page or something like that if somebody's made a thread, and then you'll see a general vote of, not vote of confidence or vote of approval, but like you'll register the amount of people that are interested in the change. And I'm sitting here looking at the members on the Trello board. There's 55, 6, 7, there's 58 people, counting the CCP staff on the Trello board. And it's pretty interesting because I actually recognize, I'm going to go on a limb and say probably 40 of the folks on here. And generally what it looks like is folks that are, A, have been around for a minute, and B, generally those that are quite invested in the game, even some that I thought had walked away from the game. But I'm sitting here looking, and you could see some pretty good comments by them. So it's just, I think this is a fantastic example of how community collaboration and community outreach can work if it's handled in a very, in a very positive way. So I think this is a really good success story. And I really like some of the ideas. Some of them are great. Some of them have been around for a long time. Some of them are pretty novel in their approaches, but I'm generally very, very pleased that they're even letting us come up with this now. I think the proof will be in the pudding when you actually start seeing, because my understanding is we were going to put all these up and then at some point Rattati would go in and then comment, or he would prioritize some of these ideas, or there would be some sort of a communication loop reference to Trello cards from CCP. Is that how you guys understood it?
From my understanding, what he wants to do, and he talked about this a bit last week, is he has his own personal one that he puts cards on, and he wants.
Oh yes, that's right. So that's when he called Pokey a little shit. Yeah. Carry on.
Yeah. He wants to clean that up and then allow that everyone to view that, and so people will be able to see ideas going from, there was on the public Trello to, Rattati made a card about that. So clearly he, between, forums or Trello or whatever, that is an issue that has made his radar, that sort of thing. But I don't know when that will be done.
To his credit, I think he also has commented on a couple cards, if memory serves. So he is at least reading it and responding, at least in some limited fashion. So that's good to see.
So I'm looking at this Trello board. I mean, I've looked at it before, but I'm looking at it again, like the roadmap one, and I'm looking at it, and I'm not seeing like any elaboration on any of their cards. Like, I was curious about Epic Planetary Conquest, Epic User Experience, Epic Social, and I wanted to, figure out what that meant, but I click on them and nothing shows up.
Well, the epics are subheadings, kind of. Those are like the big items, and then you'll notice that those are not all at the top, and that's because the items directly following the epic are a part of that epic.
Oh, okay.
CCP uses a development system known as Agile. It is very similar to some of the other industry systems lately, formed off the Toyota system, so to say. But the term epic is for like big story ideas, things that are like, okay, this is going to be our new big feature. What should be part of it? And that's where individual stories are made. And individual stories are specific features within that epic. Sometimes the two are separate, sometimes they're intertwined. But the epic is a very strong, very disambiguous goal that they want to go towards. So how they get there is going to be up to the stories that they make for them.
But you'll notice that, say, under Planetary Conquest, the details on that are the items under it, which are war barges, timers, district overview, and battle rewards. Those also don't have a lot of descriptive information, and I'm hoping that that is something that is coming soon.
Yeah, because I'm looking at war barge, flotilla, and clone vats, and that's piquing my interest.
It's pretty cool.
Well, let me ask then. You said there's no descriptive information in those cards. Does CCP have more descriptive information that they could put in there?
We've discussed with them some pretty solid game concepts for all the things that have been mentioned on there. There needs to be like that written up, and then it needs to be conveyed to players, in my opinion, as soon as humanly possible, so that players can start to provide feedback on it.
Yeah, I am going to slightly disagree with this, because there's going to be people who are going to be looking at this and you're going to think, oh, patch notes.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, I mean, it has to be very more of a story than a notes format.
I would offer that if you put a one-sentence descriptor for some of these things, that would help, because I'm just, I can guess on my own what most of the stuff means, but obviously, like what I think a clone vat bay is probably not anywhere close to what a clone vat is that you guys are looking at for Planetary Conquest. But I think at some point it's probably not bad to, to pitch like a very brief, like I said, one sentence descriptor in there that describes what you're trying to build, not necessarily what it is, but what are you trying to do with the item.
And I don't think that the concern of players misunderstanding the tentativeness of it is a good enough excuse not to present the information. I mean, as it is, the roadmap itself is tentative. Things can get dropped off of it if it's not going to happen. But it's a goal. This is what CCP thinks they can accomplish and what they're going to try to accomplish. And for the same, I think that we can have a description of what they're working on in these new systems and allow players to comment on what they think is going to happen, and for that to be able to help guide CCP on some decisions that they're probably going to come across as they're building the system.
I remember on the forums, one guy thought the next release 1.0 was Legion or something. He posted on the forum saying, "Hey, Rattati, nice hint towards Legion," or something like that.
He was trolling. He knew better.
Yeah.
Was it one of your alts, Rai?
No, that was breaking stuff. He's a goon, which is self-explanatory on the fact that he was trolling.
Yeah. By the way, I would also point out that the goon CPM or CSM members are some of the least trolly CSM members.
It is
that are out there. Clearly, you don't follow that mold.
No, that's actually it is very amusing. Minna is actually like an incredible candidate in her his own right. He doesn't have to run because if a goon is the official candidate, they're gonna win, but actually does answer questions, campaign properly, etc.
I'm gonna admit, I was looking at that next release 1.0, and I was kind of curious myself.
It's like chromosome uprising, etc. There will be a new name to it. It'll be Dust, whatever.
It's an expansion.
Yeah. So that sort of thing is, and Eve uses the same notation where a new expansion is that expansion name 1.0.
Okay, well, I can kind of buy that. That is kind of interesting. So, as I whip out my finest tinfoil hat here, I'm looking at the amount of skill points and things that you can accrue in the game of Dust and the things you can do, and then even this short-term roadmap, which looks strikingly like things we've been told before. At this point, I firmly believe Legion's a fucking collectible trading card game. So this should be pretty entertaining to go forward over the next year, I guess.
Eve Hearthstone?
Might as well
I was
be.
about to say that.
Well, no, I'm pretty confident that whatever they think that thing's going to look like, if it's even a thing still, it will be probably not like what anybody conceptualizes in their head right now. But it's also very obvious that if it were to be anywhere remotely like what they showed us at FanFest, at least from the in-match standpoint, there's no way they'll let us carry our characters over to it other than perhaps the name. So I've pretty much made that mental cut already.
Pyrex was he was commenting on that in the video yesterday, I think, with our new loyalty rank, where it's listed in your rank, and maybe that carries over and it gives you some kind of perk going into Legion. Who knows?
Well, I mean, the reality is they're not going to let any of us get in there with 50, 60, 70, 80 million skill points, 100 million, whatever.
100 million, that's someone tweeted this week.
There's a couple of assumptions I think people are making, and the first, of course, is as Jay pointed out, Legion could be a collectible card game, and the skill point's not relevant or something. But the other thing to point out is if you have a different skill system or whatever, the value of skill points may be vastly different. So 80 million could be a drop in the bucket, or maybe they would say if you have 80 million, you're going to get 10 million in this game because that's an equivalent level of progression, or whatever, or they scale back. They present so many SP to the person with the most, and then everything's a fractional amount of that, so that it's a bonus that is relative to what you had in the previous game, but not the same level of progression.
The number itself is irrelevant. It's what you said is what's the relative amount of skill points, because the reality.
What if they don't have skill points at all?
Yeah, right. But what you're talking about is the relative level of progression. I don't give a shit if you can call them skill points, you can call them experience points, you can call them cookie points.
Here's the other thing, though, is that Dust is so Dust has a problem with relating, balancing new players versus veterans. And if you reset, if you create a game and you reset everyone back to 0, and when you start a game at 0, that problem does not exist. There is no imbalance between veterans and new players because there is no veterans. But that doesn't mean the problem doesn't exist. And the problem will eventually manifest it later as you have new players coming in and you have players with 80 million skill points. So
Within the first month, usually.
So what is the point of resetting people if you're just delaying the problem?
That's interesting.
That
Here's my
disparity
thing.
you might as well solve right out of the gate.
Here's my viewpoint on it is that the only reason why I could see it having our skill points not going over is because they don't want the new players, as you said, to get stomped by all of these veterans in their shiny new game, right? And a majority of the players are going to be EVE players, I'm assuming. And so what I have to say to that is, like, EVE players need to HTFU on that, seriously. Because, we've been veterans, and we go in and we play EVE after playing Dust. Not me, I've been playing EVE for 10 years. And they tell all the Dust characters, HTFU. This is our time. We should tell them to HTFU.
Well, Rattati made a point in the forums. He was talking about meta lockouts. I don't know if he just threw out some numbers for it, but he's thinking about it.
Yeah, that's an interesting conversation.
That's a roadmap item, actually.
Yeah, he did mention it though. I can't. I think I even commented. I just for the life of me can't remember. Jadek, can you remember what he was? What the gist of it was?
He had structured it in 3 tiers. I can't remember the third tier, but the first tier was I think it was 100 and then 200, and then beyond that,
those were
those are made up numbers,
complete nonsense numbers. But it was just a case in point example.
But yeah, I think I remember what it was. Like, I think everybody in the thread knew that they were example. You put an X, Y, and Z in there for all we care.
Yeah.
I think everybody realized that pretty quick. But I think some of us had the point that you should not have 3 tiers. You need like 2, and then make an adjustment off that, because I think you would split the player base much too far if you went with 3. The other thing is, frankly, if you were a very focused builder, you could max out a role like an assault role and maybe 8 million skill points ish.
There was also concern with logistics players too. I think you had mentioned that.
Yeah, it's skill intensive. So, like, if you think about it, if you need to skill, let's say, all the same stuff that you do with an assault, but then you've got 5 different equipment slots or 5 equipment options, maybe even 6 that you've got to mess with, and you just brought those all up to like level 3, that gets pretty intensive as well. So that might throw your bell curve off.
But yeah, this was something CCPZ had brought up at FanFest, and it's kind of interesting that they're looking into it again for Dust.
I actually personally really hate the idea of any sort of meta level lockout system. I think it renders a lot of the game design somewhat pointless, which is to me silly. But it's a popularly requested feature. So
I mean, you have it in EVE too. I mean, like you can't bring certain ships into areas.
That's not
but I could still bring a pirate frigate that tears the crap out of any Tech 1 frigate.
There's a big difference between a size class and a quality grade. That's
okay.
I mean, you can bring and you can faction a Dead Space mod, etc. Pretty much any ship out to be a couple billion ISK in value, and take that in any of those places.
The size lockouts are more for content consumption rather than what to expect in there, so to say.
Yeah, and there's a very key difference there in that is PvE, and so they're having to create an encounter that is going to work for certain classes of ships.
No, but you can't bring supers into HiSec either.
You can't make a direct comparison between the two, really. The systems are too different. I mean, I get what you're saying, but at the same time, it's very discouraging for new players to come in and instantly get, slammed against a wall by a guy in a proto suit with maxed out shit. I mean, it's not good. And I think that if you tie that to like a risk reward where the higher level stuff is much more rewarding, then you've kind of created stopgap between a pub and a FAC war match. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing.
Well,
'cause
I
think
guess
that
my
benefits
question
the
is,
best, too.
shouldn't we be? I mean, shouldn't the pub matches be essentially that, like low payout, but
They
and then
should,
you
but we
increase
need
the
to get-
fat, and then you increase the rewards in FAC war dramatically.
That's what I've been pushing for a long time.
I mean, that sounds like that would solve a little bit of it. And I do like some of the suggestions on there about basically extending the academy even further. I think that would not be a bad, and then offering like a free respec at the end of the academy or something like that. I think that would go a long way if you basically used the pub versus FAC war reward system as a driver, as a positive driver, versus a constraint on the player base, which is what meta level lockouts would generally do. I think that's a way to do it. And then I would also point out that, like, does anybody not think that 6 veteran players in Apex suits, which is I assume that's what the lowest tier would be capped at, something like an Apex suit, because that's who they're marketed to, is primarily newer players. Like, if like all of us, if like let's say the 8 of us in this channel, we Q-synced into some kind of FAC war in Apex suits, we would annihilate people. Even Zell. I mean, or at least we could use him as a meat shield, something like that.
One of the reasons I dislike meta level lockout is because I do think people place more blame than is warranted on proto suits, when really it's the people behind the proto suits that are doing
I would
the
agree.
stomping.
Teamwork is OP.
As it should be, by the way.
Yeah.
But your teamwork is OP. But I think that there should be a proper place for people to play solo, and I think because a lot of new players
that's
start
called
that way.
Game.
No, a lot of new players are going to start solo, and they're if you
Okay,
really want to
so
kill stomping, give give players a place to start.
I would like
without
to
squad.
quote like CCP Rattati, who said that this is a team game, and players should be brought to the team. Like, I mean, he basically said on the show last week, like this is a team game. It is a social centric game, like that you were designed to play with others. So why would I want to incentivize you to play? Like, you can solo all of it. I mean, I play by myself quite a bit.
I'm not saying incentivize it. You can have the rewards lower for playing in the solo area, but you should be able to.
There should not be a separate area. If you want to play solo, that's on you. But like, don't say that solo players need to be protected, though.
Yeah,
but
I'll agree
solo
with Jason
player,
on that.
But I'm going to argue that solo players equal new players in many cases.
I mean, a deathmatch mode would seem fine really, to me. You know?
Well, yeah. My personal view is that if you are ever going to find a way to fix the ability for people to play solo reasonably, and a place for people to try stuff out and play if they're a little lower on experience, is if they were able to find a way to kill squatting in ambush, because ambush is a cruddy mode to begin with, and since there's no objectives in ambush, there's no good reason for teamwork other than to stomp other people.
Pretty much.
I think ambush should be a solo game mode.
Okay.
I'll second that, but once again, the problem that you would run into is any heavy that wants to queue solo is boned.
Sure.
I queue solo as a heavy sometimes.
Yeah,
it works
yeah,
out
I can.
fine.
Well, sometimes.
Well, not if everyone is using rail rifles.
Yeah,
That's when you call him a tank, and anyone that gets near your tank, you just pop out and mow him down.
I mean, I do find in my Mimitar Sentinel solo, man. I mean, I got, I think, militia repair, so I'm not sure exactly. It's been a while since I played. I do find solo in my Mimitar Sentinel. You know, I don't really rely on a Logi at all.
Yeah, but for your average player, you're going to run into a lot of problems, especially as heavies or supportive roles when you queue solo matches like that, simply because of the nature of it.
Yeah, I mean, and I would also point out that, like when I run solo, most of the times I'll still run Logi. That's not a very forgiving way to play if you really don't know what you're doing. If you try to like just solo Logi, that's a great way to like get killed and spend a lot of ISK.
Suffice to say that solo really only works for scouts and assault suits.
I would pretty much agree with that.
I disagree. You can solo Logi. You just need to work with blueberries, which is painful at
Very
times
difficult.
but functional.
Right. I think the point though is it's really hard. Like you need to be able to talk to them. Like
I thought we were talking about free for all.
overrated.
I'd actually like to see that, like what Legion would potentially have in terms of PvE and exploration solo, because
I would buy
I'm
that
a
more.
big fan of solo play, but not in terms exclusively of PvP. So maybe Legion would like to emphasize solo play, but that aren't
Like if
PvP.
I think Hynox is onto it. Like, I mean, that is where solo play really shines, is when you can do PvE. And the other component, I'm down with a deathmatch style, but what you have is team deathmatch. So the minute you introduce the T word into it, that changes the paradigm. But if it was like 32 players, last man standing wins kind of thing, fine. But you would really have to change the construct of that game mode like dramatically to I think accommodate that.
In reference to exploration and solo play, I had always thought about, since FanFest, what I do on a planet where a bunch of hostile targets are dropping in, and the first thing and the only thing that ever comes to mind is I'll just be sitting up on some mountain somewhere with a sniper rifle, picking people off when they're busy, and I would just have fun doing that all day.
Yeah, similarly, I would immensely enjoy some sort of stealth mechanic, possibly tied to PvE, if it's a simple detection meter. I believe I went into this before, but some sort of like stealth mechanic with the PvE regarding the NPCs would increase the dynamic of the game like tremendously.
Yeah, I think that'd be probably pretty legit. I'm sitting here listening to you. I like the idea that you got Hynox, and the thought that popped in my head is we use basically a version of the Unreal Engine, and I remember playing Unreal Tournament many moons ago that would have, was it 32, like I think it was like 32 bots, like you versus 30 other bots in the game, and that was years ago. You would think that they would be able to figure that out.
The problem is those bots were so freaking stupid.
That's not the point. That's absolutely not the point. The fact is that they had it.
Yeah, it's more or less the option choice.
Well, think about all the problems we have with terrain right now. Can you imagine how dumb the bots would be with the terrain problems combined? I can just see a heavy bot trying to jump over a fence or something, just non-stop, and you're going to sit there, have a Coke, and just watch that all
So
day.
what you're saying is it would be about as smart as a blueberry. Got it.
Then try to factor in stuff like maybe wildlife AI or robots or some sort of obtuse AI that's not humanoid.
No, yes. I want zombie dinosaurs. I want to fight zombie dinosaurs with drones.
That's how you make Game of the Year.
I want to fight Sancho's Nation.
That would actually be very legit.
Yeah,
that would be very. That is a bot, basically.
Pretty much.
It's a big cyber zombie. That would work out really well. Yeah, I mean, and that actually works really well with Eve, because basically a large part of their high payout PvE is incursions, and you're basically doing the ground side of an incursion that way. That'd be a great tie-in, Lethargic.
I've wanted that for a long time. I even wrote a thread about it once, about what it would look like, and basically the way it would work, if you guys want to hear about this, is that basically it would be a 4-player match against 32 minutes against 28 Sancho's clones. And I was thinking that you basically have to hold out until it's like something, I don't know, like extraction or
reinforcements.
Until and you just have to hold out, and you only get X amount of clones, and it just takes a lot of skill to be able to hold the line. You get like a defensive place and whatnot, and they're tougher than players, but since they're AI, they're obviously not as smart, so that's why you make them tougher.
That would actually be pretty fun, like something like squad based like that. I like that.
Yeah, sort of expanding upon that thought process, something that would make the game really step into its own and sort of bridge the gap between this and MMO in a memorable way would be like he said, a sort of mission system related to PvE, where you would basically choose missions either in stations, root quarters, whatever you live.
One more thing I would like to add on that.
And you basically complete a series of PvE objectives, be they survive X amount of time, kill Y enemy, like acquire C resource, something like that. And basically, you could do it solo or co-op, and basically the amount of players that you had with you would scale the difficulty of both your objectives and the enemies you fight.
What I'd like to add on to that is that in EVE, I remember when Incursions first came out, and whenever you were in a space dock during an incursion, in an incursion region, there would be this siren that you could hear. I don't think it's there anymore, but what that and there was like this like hazy like fog in space that you know just made the places more creepy, and to me that elicited an emotional response of this not immediate fear, but it made me uneasy just because of the atmosphere. And if like we could have like some sort of environment modification to elicit an emotional response, like we have what do they call those kinds of sirens? An air raid siren. That's it.
Klaxon.
Yeah, it's still in there too. Yeah.
I enjoy
if we
that.
could get that with like a heavy like black smoke, fog, and dust, oh my god, dude, I would be set.
Bring back the chromosome sandstorms, basically.
That
Could give the Sanchez Nation like glowing red eyes, like more so than Proto. Like Proto won't have nothing on their eyes. Just saying.
it would be. I mean, there's a lot of things you
Sanchez
could
colors
do.
are green.
Very tinfoil hat. I mean,
Well, fine, make them big green glowing eyes. That's very zombie-ish. I'm down with that. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, they could just use like Amar and Caldari models and
oh yeah,
call it good.
For PvE at least, and this is something I've talked about with players in game for like months. Maybe for faction warfare, you could also have like a PvE tangent where you go on missions that would relate to factions. Essentially, just have faction-based player models complete with their corresponding weapons and gear, and you just have, say, like Amar command, like Imperial Commandos, as a PvE objective, or like you'd have Minotaur soldiers guarding Minotaur outposts, and fighting them would actually boost the war effort in some way. So you'd also be fighting players that are hired by these empires to do battle, but you'd also be competing simultaneously with like PvE enemies that would still provide bonuses nonetheless to the cause.
I think that's a pretty good idea, man. Not to cut anybody short, we'll go real quick for saved rounds here in a second, but I think that's a pretty good wrap up of some things that are kind of partial. There's a thought of like what we would want to see in Legion. Like again, that's assuming Legion isn't a board game, but you know it's kind of pushing the envelope of what might eventually be available in Dust down the road, like a few months from now, maybe like 6-7 months from now. It might be interesting to see, but I'll be very honest with you. I think before they got to that, what I'd really like them to figure out how to do is to like, I don't know, add some player count. Like even if it's just another 6 or 8 guys per side, I think that would be. I think that'd be pretty fun.
24.
Yeah, I think that you've got a player base that can actually do that, and I think you'd probably see more people trying to get into the game mode, particularly if you only had one game mode that offered it. So that's just a thought. I think if there's a modest increase in the player count per match, I think that would be pretty awesome. But with that, guys, let's real quick, if there's any saved rounds, anybody got any last shots before we do shout-outs? Nope. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll do shout-outs. We'll start at the top, and then we'll kind of work our way down. So Lethargic, any shout-outs?
To CCP Rattati, give us incursions. Shut up and take my money.
Okay. All right. Gand?
To CCP, yeah. I want to see some of Legion, sometime soon. Yeah.
Okay. Hynox?
Thanks CCP for not banning me for my latest endeavor.
Okay. In case nobody heard Hynox, he said, "Thank you CCP for not banning him. I will add the keyword yet." Iron Wolf?
I like to give a shout out to CCP. and our team for continuing on support for Dust.
Oh, cool. Okay. And Jadek?
I'd like to give a shout out to the nameless capsuleers and mercenaries who've entered the Market Mistress. Your tips are very much appreciated.
Would you like to tell everybody where they can get a hold of the Market Mistress?
Market Mistress can be found in your local New Eden chat. She is available to pleasure you in all forms of lore and market items.
I can assure you that his services making the rounds in the New Eden world and in Eve, it is all that you might think it would be. Okay, Pokey.
Shout out to all the new guys here. Thanks for showing up for the show. It's always get new guests on and get your ideas. Also, shout out to everyone who's been helping me and commenting on my vehicle redesign document. Godin included, because he's crying in the Skype chat. But True Adamants and many others have been helping me with that. So shout out to you guys. You're awesome.
Okay, and Zell?
Yeah, I'm going to give my shout out to Comcast for shutting off my internet yesterday at 5:30 in the morning, and then taking at least 4 or 5 hours to figure out how to install it properly at my new place. So good job to them. If people have noticed, I've been pretty much non-present this weekend. There is a reason for that.
Okay, all right. And I'm Jason Larson, and I guess my shout-outs this week go to... I'll give a shout-out to my son, Parker. He just had his birthday, or his birthday party. His actual birthday is on the 31st of December, which generally means he doesn't get a birthday party, so we do it like this weekend. So shout-out to my best bro. And I will soon be getting him acquainted with a PlayStation controller here as soon as his mom isn't looking at me. So that's my shout out for the week, and I think we're going to call episode 33 done and in the box, and we will see you guys next week. One quick caveat: we will probably announce next week kind of holiday hours, like what our plan for the holidays are. So we may be taking a week or two off because we've got a lot of people traveling, but rest assured we'll get everybody a big heads up. And again, huge response last week from the Rattati show. I think we broke most of our download records by a long shot, and I really appreciate that. I know Zell and Pokey do as well.
It's going to be an expensive month.
It is, and that's a good thing. So we do appreciate the heck out of it. Everybody that gives us feedback and then listens to the show and then shoots me Twitters or gets us all on the email or whatever. But we do appreciate it. And if there's anything we can add to the show or whatever, feel free. Shoot us a note, or if you ever want to be on the show, shoot us a note, and we'll be glad to have you on.